The real demand and the true value of rare treasures.
World War II was raging across Europe and the Pacific. The United States Mint was striking coins under unusual conditions, balancing war production with everyday commerce. From that year came one of the most fascinating pennies in American history, the 1944 Lincoln cent. At first, most 1944 pennies look ordinary. Abraham Lincoln's bust on the obverse, designed by Victor David Brenner. The reverse carried the classic wheat design. Each coin weighed 3.11 grams, struck in an alloy of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc. Across the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints, more than 2.1 billion were made. That makes 1944 one of the highest mintage years of the wheat cent era. Ordinary circulated 1944 cents are common. Even uncirculated examples can often be found for a few dollars. But within that massive mintage are rarities that have sold for astonishing six-figure prices. The key variety is the 1944 steel cent. In 1943, pennies were struck in zinc-coated steel to save copper for the war. In 1944, the mint returned to copper planchets, but a few leftover steel planchets were accidentally struck at all three mints. These 1944 steel cents are among the rarest Lincoln cents. Auction history proves it. A 1944 steel cent from Philadelphia sold for $115,000. A 1944 D steel cent reached $115,000, and the legendary 1944 S steel cent realized a staggering $48,000 in mint state. That's nearly $500,000 for a penny. Besides the steel cents, other valuable varieties exist. The 1944 D over S mint mark variety shows a D punched over an S. In MS65 red, one sold for $15,600. The 1944 S over D is another, reaching $9,075 in MS64 red. Collectors chase these RPMs because they are easily visible with magnification. Errors also bring strong premiums. An off-center strike with full date sold for $3,900. A 1944 cent struck on a dime planchet realized $12,650, and a rare double denomination error, a cent struck over a mercury dime, shocked bidders at $4,800. Condition matters. A typical 1944 in MS63 red might sell for $25 to $50, but MS67 reds are much tougher. One example brought $2,585. The finest MS68 red realized $11,500. Even in copper, the top grades climb into five figures. Historically, the 1944 cent marks America's push to victory in World War II. Copper and zinc were in short supply. Mints operated at full capacity, which explains the high mintage. At the same time, mistakes slipped through. Those mistakes, like the steel planchets, created the six-figure rarities we see today. So how can you find them? Start with wheat penny rolls, estate sales, and inherited collections. Focus on mint marks and weigh any 1944 cent that looks odd. Steel cents weigh only 2.7 grams, compared to 3.11 grams for copper. A magnet test also helps, since steel cents stick to a magnet. If you find a 1944 steel cent or a major RPM, never clean it. Send it to PCGS or NGC for grading. Authenticity is crucial since counterfeits exist.
Selling depends on what you have. A common 1944 copper cent can sell on eBay or through coin shops. A steel cent or major error belongs in heritage auctions. Stax Bowers or great collections, where collectors pay six figures. Let's review the numbers. A 1944 steel cent sold for $115,000. A 1944 D steel cent reached $115,000. The 1944 S steel cent realized $408,000. A double denomination cent over dime brought $48,300. The finest MS68 red copper cent hit $11,500. Even ordinary mint errors can reach thousands. The lesson is clear. While billions of 1944 cents exist, a handful stand out as some of the most valuable pennies in the world. Check every wheat cent you come across. A magnet and a sharp eye might reveal a coin worth $48,000. That is the story of the 1944 Lincoln cent, born during wartime, struck in huge numbers, and remembered today for the rare steel planchets that turned a 1-cent coin into nearly $500,000.
The year 2000, a new millennium had just begun. Technology was exploding. The internet was becoming part of everyday life, and the US Mint continued producing billions of Lincoln cents. At first glance, the 2000 penny looks like pocket change, but hidden among those billions are varieties and errors that can transform a single cent into a six-figure treasure. Let's start with the basics. The 2000 Lincoln cent features Victor David Brenner's portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse. The reverse still carried Frank Gasparo's Lincoln Memorial design. Each cent weighed 2.5 grams, struck on a copper-plated zinc plancher, 97.5% zinc and 2.5% copper. Over 14.3 billion was struck across the Philadelphia and Denver mints. Most 2000 pennies are extremely common. Circulated examples are worth only face value. Even uncirculated rolls often sell for just a few dollars. But the year 2000 produced one of the most famous modern varieties, the 2000 wide AM cent. On the reverse, look at the spacing between the A and M in America. On the wide AM variety, the letters are clearly separated. On the normal version, they touch. Collectors know this small difference is the key to a big payday. Auction prices prove it. A 2000 wide AM in MS65. Red sold for $5,170, another in MS67. Red realized $12,650. And the finest known MS68. Red brought an incredible $25,300. That's a 0 to 1 return on a single penny. But that's not the only story. The year 2000 also produced dramatic mint errors. Adohitsin, cent struck on a dime plancher sold for $9,175. An off-center strike with nearly half the design missing brought $4,600. A double denomination error, struck over a Roosevelt dime, realized $48,300. And a spectacular mule error, a 2000 cent obverse paired with a Sacagawea dollar reverse, shocked the hobby when it sold for $117,500. Yes, over $100,000 for a coin, with a penny obverse and a dollar reverse. That mule error is one of the most famous modern US mint blunders. Condition rarity also plays a role. While billions were struck, most 2000 cents suffer from weak strikes, poor luster, or spots from the copper plating. Finding an MS68 red is extremely difficult. That's why a top pop MS68 brought 25,300s. Collectors compete fiercely for the best survivors. So how do you find them? First, search your change, rolls, and bank boxes. Look carefully at the spacing of the AM in America. Wide. AM cents stand out once you know what to look for. Use a magnifier or good photos online as a reference. Also check for major off-center strikes, clipped planchers, or wrong plancher errors. If you suspect you have a wide AM or a rare error, never clean the coin. Submit it to PCGS or NGC for authentication and grading. A certified example will always sell for more. Where should you sell? Common 2000. Cents and minor varieties. Move easily on eBay or through coin shops. Wide AM cents and top-grade red examples belong in heritage auctions, Stack's Bowers or great collections. Mule errors and six-figure pieces only belong at major auction houses, where worldwide competition drives prices higher. Let's review the numbers. A wide AM in MS65. Red sold for $5,170. An MS67 red hit, $12,650. An MS68 red realized, $25,300. A cent struck over a dime brought $48,300. And the Sacagawea dollar mule with the 2000 penny obverse sold for $117,500. The lesson is clear. Even a modern penny can be worth six figures. With billions made, the odds may seem small, but collectors still pull valuable finds from circulation every year. So check your 2000 cents. Look for the wide AM. Look for dramatic errors, because one of them might be worth $117,500. That is the story of the 2000 Lincoln cent, a common coin of the new millennium, hiding varieties and errors that turned ordinary change into six-figure treasures. A modern year, but one that produced some surprising treasures for collectors. The US Mint struck billions of pennies, yet among them are varieties and errors that have sold for staggering six-figure prices. Let's break down the 2019 D. Lincoln cent. The basics first. The obverse shows Abraham Lincoln's bust, still based on Victor David Brenner's 1909 design. The reverse carries the shield, design introduced in 2010 by Lyndall Bass, symbolizing the Union preserved. Each cent weighs 2.5 grams, made of 97.5% zinc with a thin copper plating. The Denver Mint alone produced more than 7.2 billion 2019 D cents, making it one of the most common coins in circulation. Circulated examples are only worth face value. Uncirculated rolls might bring a few dollars. But in coin collecting, the story is never about the ordinary. It's about the rare exceptions. The standout variety is the 2019 double die obverse. On some coins, the inscriptions "Liberty" and "In God We Trust" show strong doubling. In certified mint state, these double dies sell for hundreds to thousands. One MS67 red double die realized $7,250, another in MS68. Red reached $11,400. But the real surprises are the mint errors. A Trendistine D struck on a blank dime plancher sold for $3,750. Another struck off-center by 60%, brought $2,200. Dramatic double denomination error struck over a Roosevelt dime, stunned bidders at $47,600. And the most spectacular, a 2019 D mule error paired with a Sacagawea dollar reverse, brought $132,250. That's over $100,000 for a penny-sized coin. Condition rarity also plays a role. With billions struck, quality varies. Most 2019 D cents show spots, plating bubbles, or weak strikes. High-grade red survivors are scarce. And Messestio, red brought $2,585. The finest known MS69, red realized $6,563. Even without varieties or errors, top populations bring serious premiums. Auction records underline the demand. Heritage auctions sold the Sacagawea mule error for $132,250. Great collections handled a double die in MS68, red for $11,400, and Stack S. Bowers sold a spectacular off-metal error for $18,975. Collectors want modern rarities just as much as classics. Historically, the 2019 D marks the 10th year of the shield cent design. By this time, the mint had perfected high-speed production, but mistakes still slipped through. With billions made, even a tiny percentage of errors created valuable outliers. So how can you find them? First, check every 2019 D penny in your change. Look for bold doubling on Liberty and "In God We Trust." Check for off-center strikes, odd weights, or unusual planchers. Use a magnet if needed. Some off-metal errors can be identified this way. If you suspect you have a valuable piece, never clean it. Submit it to PCGS or NGC. A certified coin always brings more. Selling depends on what you have. Common coins can go on eBay or through coin shops. Wide AM varieties, double dies, and MS68 plus examples belong in specialized auctions. Major errors or mules must go to Heritage, Stax Bowers, or Great Collections to reach their full six-figure potential. Let's review the numbers. A 2019 D double die in MS68. Red brought $11,400, an off-metal. Cent struck on a dime sold for $3,750. A dramatic double denomination over dime realized $47,600, and the 2019 D Sacagawea mule error sold for $132,250. The lesson is simple. Even the most common-looking modern penny can hide six-figure value. Billions were struck, but the rare errors and top-grade examples prove that you should never ignore change in your pocket. That is the story of the 2019 D Lincoln cent. A modern coin, a mountain of mintage, but a handful of rarities worth as much as $132,250. America was in the middle of social change. The Vietnam War was at its peak. The US Mint in San Francisco struck billions of coins, including one of the most famous Lincoln cent varieties ever discovered, the 1970s small date. Let's start with the basics. The 1970s penny shows Victor David Brenner's portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse. The reverse still carried the Lincoln Memorial design by Frank Gasparo. Each coin weighed 3.11 grams, made of 95% copper and 5% zinc and tin. More than 690 million were struck in San Francisco. But not all of them are the same. There are two major obverse styles, the large date and the small date. On the large date, the top of the 7 sits higher than the 0, and the word liberty appears weak. On the small date, the 7 is level with the 0, and liberty is strong. This small design difference created one of the most sought-after modern rarities. Ordinary 1970s cents are common, worth only face value in circulation. But the 1970s small date in top grades is a key to the series. Auction prices prove it. Small date in MS65. Red sold for $6,463, another in MS66. Red realized $15,275, the finest known MS67. Red shocked the market at $35,250, and a double die obverse, small date in mint state, sold for $126,500. That's six figures for a penny. There's more. Proofs struck in San Francisco also exist. The 1970s proof set contains either a large date or small date cent, The small date proofs are scarcer and command a premium. A PR69 Red Deep Cameo. Small date brought 19,200, and the finest PR70 Red Deep Cameo realized 29,375. Errors make this year even more exciting. A 1970s cent struck 40% off center sold for 1,840. One struck on a dime plancher realized 6,463s. A double denomination strike over a Roosevelt dime reached 28,750, and an incredible proof double denomination error brought 117,500. Condition rarity plays a huge role. While hundreds of millions exist, most show spots, scratches, or weak strikes. MS67 red examples are extremely rare, which explains the $35,250 sale. Proof small dates in PR70 are almost impossible to find, hence the high premiums. Historically, this coin marks the end of the 1960s mint era. San Francisco was producing both circulation strikes and proof coins, often under rushed conditions. That's why weak strikes and quality problems are common. But within that mass production, the small date variety slipped in, turning a cent into a numismatic prize. So how can you find one? First, check every 1970s penny. Look at the 7 in the date. On the small date, it's level with the 0. On the large date, it rises above it. Also check liberty. Strong liberty often means small date. Magnification helps, but once you learn the difference, it becomes easy to spot. If you think you have a small date or a double die, do not clean it. Submit it to PCGS or NGC. Grading is critical, especially at high levels. Selling depends on what you have. A common large date belongs in change jars or eBay rolls. A small date in mint state or proof belongs in heritage auctions, Stack's Bowers or great collections. A double die or double denomination error belongs only in the major. Auction houses, where six-figure bidders compete. Let's review the numbers. Animesti. Red small date sold for 6,463. An MS66. Red realized 15,275. The record MS67. Red hit 35,250. A double die small date brought $126,500. A PR70 deep cameo small date realized 29,375 and a double denomination proof. Error shocked the market at 117,500. The lesson is simple. Even a cent from the 1970s, a year most collectors overlook, can be worth six figures if it has the right variety or error. So check every 1970s in your collection. Look closely at the date, because one of them might be a small date, or even a double die, worth up to $120,500. That is the story of the 1970 Lincoln Cent, a coin of the Vietnam era, struck in two date styles, and today a treasure hiding in plain sight. Let's start with the basics. The 1972 cent weighs 3.11 grams, composed of 95% copper and 5% zinc and tin. The obverse carries Victor David Brenner's portrait of Abraham Lincoln. The reverse still shows Frank Gasparo's Lincoln Memorial. More than 2.9 billion cents were struck in Philadelphia, with no mint mark. But among those billions, a rare mistake occurred. A dramatic double die obverse variety was created. On this coin, the date 1972 shows clear doubling. The word liberty and the motto "In God We Trust" also appear doubled. This is not a machine doubling. This is true hub doubling, and it's bold enough to see without magnification. Collectors call it the 1972 double die obverse, or DDO. It quickly became one of the most collected Lincoln varieties. Ordinary 1972 cents in circulation are worth only 1 cent, but the double die obverse in high grades can reach staggering figures. Auction records prove the demand. An MSD red example sold for $12,650. An MS66 red realized $23,500. Another MS66 red reached $33,600. And the finest MS67 red shocked the market at $126,500. That's six figures for a single cent. Other varieties exist too. In fact, the mint identified over 10 different doubled dies for 1972. Most are minor, but they still bring premiums. Collectors always want bold doubling, and the stronger the spread, the higher the price. Errors add even more interest. A 1970 cent struck on a dime plancher sold for $4,025. Another struck, off-center by 50%, brought $2,760. A double denomination error struck over a Roosevelt dime, realized $12,650. Condition is key. Most 1972 cents circulated heavily, showing wear and spots. Brilliant, mark-free examples in MS66 or MS67 are rare, which is why prices jump from hundreds into tens of thousands at the highest grades. Historically, this coin represents the mint's ongoing struggles with hubbing. Technology in the early 1970s, the double die came from misalignment during hubbing, when the obverse design was pressed into the working die multiple times. Collectors of the era noticed the error quickly, and by the 1980s, it was already a household name in numismatics. So how do you find one? Check every 1972 penny. Look at the word Liberty. On the double die, the letters show strong, clear doubling. The same goes for In God We Trust across the top and the date itself. If you see split serifs or thick outlines, you may have found the variety. Do not confuse this with machine doubling, which looks flat and shelf-like. True double dies show rounded, distinct doubling. If you find one, do not clean it. Submit it to PCGS or NGC. A graded, slabbed coin brings much more money than a raw example. Selling depends on the grade. A circulated 1972 double die might sell for $150 to $300. In mint, state, prices climb fast. At MS65 red, you're in the thousands. At MS67 red, you're looking at six-figure money. These coins sell best through heritage auctions, Stax Bowers, or great collections. Let's recap the numbers. An MSD red sold for $12,650. An MS66 red realized $23,500. Another MS66 reached $33,600. The record MS67 red brought $126,500. Even off-center and double denomination, errors can sell for over $10,000. The lesson is clear. A common penny from 1972 can still turn into a life-changing discovery if it carries the right doubling. So check your change, your jars, your rolls, and your collections. Look carefully at Liberty, In God We Trust, and the date, because the bold double die of 1972 is one of the most valuable pennies of the modern era. That is the story of the 1972 Lincoln cent, a coin struck in the billions, a double die that turned a cent into six figures, and a reminder that treasures still hide in plain sight.